Welcome to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to awaken our divine nature and explore the provocative inner force compelling us toward our fullest potential. If you've achieved external success but feel a deeper calling, if you're tired of dimming your light to fit in, and you know there's a more powerful way to live and lead and love, you're in the right place. Host Donna is a best-selling author, modern-day high priestess, and catalyst for personal transformation. Together, we're birthing a new paradigm of loving leadership, integrating our humanity with divine wisdom as our individual awakening serves collective evolution. Here's your host of Spiritual Ambition, Donna Bond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in, welcome back, welcome to Spiritual Ambition. Today, we are going to have an amazing conversation with Maria Brophy. Our show today is called Maria Brophy's Impossible Journey: Love, Miracles, and Sacred Contracts. What if the hardest thing that you've ever faced in your life was actually a sacred contract that your soul agreed to before you were born? Think about that. What if the suffering and the impossible choices, the moments where you believed you couldn't take one more step, what if all of that was part of the perfect learning journey through which your sacred soul plan unfolds for your highest potential and the highest potential of those around you? Maria Brophy walked herself through fire after fire after fire as she advocated for the life of her husband, Drew, for many, many months, which included 70 days where he fought for his life while he was on a ventilator. She faced impossible decisions. She had to surrender control, and she had to fight as she became a warrior through the most remarkable story. In the depth of that hell, she discovered something extraordinary, that this journey wasn't just happening to her or to Drew. It was happening through her, for her transformation, for Drew's healing, and for every single person who witnessed what love looks like when we believe in that above all else. This isn't just a story of survival. It's the illumination of the power of love. This is what happens when we approach our sacred soul plan with grace, when we surrender and fight at the same time. Today, we are going to talk to a remarkable woman about her seemingly impossible journey and the sacred contract that became a healing transmission of love for the collective. So as we begin every Spiritual Ambition episode, we're going to take a moment to close our eyes and turn our attention inward. Hello, everyone who's joining us. Jennifer, welcome. And Sharon, Carrie, Terry, thank you so much for being here today. We are on the Sacred Spiral Network. Today, we are going to interview Maria Brophy, and we're going to talk about her latest book, her third book, called CovidALoveStory, which is about a remarkable, remarkable unfolding of love. Welcome in, Allison, Kellyanne, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here. Let's just do a little attunement, and in this moment, closing our eyes and just focusing our attention on our heart space, remembering the power of our heart space, the power of our heart coherence and the beautiful resonant frequency of transmission that emanates from our clear hearts. This doesn't just come from some of us, it comes from all of us. And as we place our focus, our attention, our loving on our heart space, we activate that essence, that loving, and we send that out and around the globe. Infinite universe, we call ourselves forward into your loving. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear white light of living love. We ask that any karma, negativity, imbalance, any distress, discomfort, dis-ease, any constriction, contraction, false notion, old ideas, limiting beliefs, any restriction of the heart, any energy or vibrational frequency that is vibrating at anything less than the frequency of divine loving that may be residing anywhere in our consciousness. We ask that anything with a resonant frequency less than loving be lifted and transmuted at this time, taken to the highest realms of light and sound, and dispersed back into the nothingness. Into this space, we recognize grace, peace, light, love, understanding of the higher purpose, soul contracts, sacred contracts, divine knowing. We acknowledge and we welcome only those divine beings of light who love each one of us unconditionally, who work for the divine plan and who work for the light, keeping in mind each of our unique destinies. We welcome only you into our sacred space here today, and we ask for your support and assistance in bringing forward healing, revelation, and wisdom of the heart. We are grateful for the opportunity to come together, and for this and more, we say thank you. So be it. And just bringing our attention back to the room. Hello, everyone. Welcome in, Melissa, Labyrinthia, Jennifer. Every sacred contract is a love story, not just about loving another, but about discovering the infinite capacity for love that lives inside each one of us. My intention for today's show is to help you understand through this remarkable story of Maria and Drew Brophy that our suffering isn't random, that it's a sacred invitation to discover the infinite capacity for love within you. And as you discover this, sharing that discovery out into the world sends a ripple of healing out to everyone that it touches. Drew and Maria Brophy's remarkable voyage is actually an illustration of exactly what I'm talking about. And you can read all about it in her new book, COVID, A Love Story. Before we bring Maria on stage, we want to honor our sacred circle of light and how we send light and love around and out to whoever may need it in this time on the planet today. So I do have some names that have been submitted, but if there's anybody that you would like to send light and loving to, feel free to just drop their name in the chat. Hello to Michael, June, welcome in. Kelly, thank you for being here, for all that you do. Today, we're going to send light to Drew and to Maria, to their remarkable community of supporters that really held the container for the miracle that is Drew, living today, breathing today, alive today. We send light to Kelly, to David, to Celia, to Don, to Betty, to Bob, to Eric, Sharon, Maria, Elmer, Daniel, Skylar. And we just take that moment and we exercise our power of intention. And collectively and together, we send that light. Thank you. Annette, Sam, and Mary, we send you the light as well. Patrick, if you have a light request that you would like to submit, you can go to spiritualambitionsacredlight.com and submit the name of your loved one into our sacred container. All right, well, listen, Maria Brophy is just an incredible woman. She's a remarkable human on the planet, and I'm so grateful that we're on the planet at the same time. Like, I knew I would get emotional about this because, you know, I have the opportunity to work with so many amazing women, and I have not worked with Maria in a private coaching experience, but witnessing who she is and what she has moved herself through is so exquisite on so many levels. And, you know, I said this to her before we began that, you know, we're not going to tell you a whole bunch of the stories about what is in her book, COVID, A Love Story, because I want you to go buy the book. And I promise when I tell you, this is a page turner, people. This is a page turner. I could not put this down. And as I read this book, and, you know, I was trying to steal time where I could read this book and get through every single inch of it because the story is incredible at every single turn. And as a matter of fact, Kelly, if you want to show the book right now before we even bring Maria on, you can go to mariabrophy.com and you can order your copy of COVID, A Love Story. This is Maria's third book. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of her official bio. Maria is an Amazon best-selling author of her first book, Art, Money, and Success. She also wrote a book called Empowered Women's Circles, and now she has COVID, A Love Story. Maria is an expert on art licensing and deal making and has made it her quest to help artists cultivate confidence in business and feel comfortable when negotiating deals. I think that the work that Maria does is actually very important and sacred on many levels because she is helping artists break free from that old archetype that so many were imprinted with of this starving artist. Maria has created the archetype of the thriving artists, and she helps artists break free from that old mindset so that they can actually earn an income and support their lifestyle by creating and selling their art. Maria has been consulting artists since 2009. And during the last 2 decades, she has acted as the agent and the brand manager, successfully building up Drew Brophy's lifestyle brand, bringing him to the status of being the top licensed surf artist in history. She also saved his life. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage here at Spiritual Ambition, Maria Brophy.
Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
good
for
to
being
see you.
It's good to see you. It's so wonderful to be with you. First and foremost, how are you guys?
Awesome. Awesome, just still trying to figure out life, what to do with what's left of the years on this planet, trying to praying for guidance every day, to be perfectly honest. Every morning I say, "God, Jesus, angels, show me what I'm supposed to be doing today."
Maria, it was Carolyn Mace who actually wrote a book called Sacred Contracts. She is an author and a spiritual teacher, and she defined a sacred contract as an agreement that your soul makes before you're born. You promise to do certain things for yourself, for others, and for divine purpose. As I read your book, COVID, a Love Story, I couldn't help but see this and see your journey and you and Drew's union through this lens as a sacred contract, and that this wasn't something that was happening to you and Drew, but something that your souls agreed to walk and to walk through for reasons that are far beyond what your conscious minds could have understood at that time. As I bring this forward and I just throw this on the table right out of the gate, what are your thoughts about you and Drew's epic journey being about a sacred contract?
I know that to be true now. When I met Drew in 1996, I was not spiritual at all. I didn't understand or even think about these things. But I do remember the night I met him, I felt like I knew him really well. He was so familiar to me that I was instantly, as my friends would say, obsessed with him. But really, it was, I guess you could say it was an obsession, because the moment I met him, I was like, I've got to know this guy. And we created this amazing life together. We did a lot of things together. We built a business that people said couldn't be done. We did a lot of things that people said couldn't be done. You can't raise kids and travel the world at the same time and be a business owner. We did all of that. We always did what we wanted to do, but it was really that first week Drew was in the hospital with COVID in 2021 when I realized how serious this was and how frightened I was. I was terrified. And I remember having this thought, this more than a thought, an understanding, a knowing that came from, I don't know where a knowing comes from, but I had a knowing even before I knew how bad things were going to get, that this was a path that we were walking together. And I think logically, I could say, well, I had that knowing because when I look at all the things that led up to him being hospitalized, it was all these weird things that went wrong. And you can't have that many things go wrong without there being a purpose. For example, we always traveled with a COVID kit. We were traveling. It was the only time I had ever accidentally left it at home. And the COVID kit had all these remedies. And so that was the first one. Then I had a broken thermometer, so I didn't realize how bad his fever was. I had the wrong information on what your SpO2 levels are supposed to be. It was just all these things that just kept happening that went wrong. And then after a certain point, after, he was dying, he did die, he came back, all these things happened. Then it started going in the other direction. And then miracles occurred. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, when I look back now on all the things in my life, I'm 60 years old, don't tell anybody. And the beautiful thing about getting older is you look back on
Yes.
all these things in your life, relationship, friendships, things that went right and wrong. And you say everything was preparing me for this
Yes.
big thing that happened.
Yes. Everything was preparing me for this big thing that happened. Like, holy wow. Give us one example of that.
The first thought that comes to mind is when Drew's father was dying. And, we live in California. His parents live in South Carolina. And this was 2014. And we were homeschooling at the time. So we were blessed to be able to uproot our family and go to South Carolina and basically quit working for a few months and nurse his father until he died. And his father died at home, and we held him as he took his last breath. And the preparation I got from that was dealing with severe medical issues that you can't fix, dealing with, but also dealing with the beauty. There's so much beauty when you are being with this person that you love. And I loved my father-in-law. He was a father. He was the only father I had because my father was not present. So he meant so much to me. And being there and holding him along with other family members as he took his last breath, I saw how beautiful death can be. And I saw the beauty of this life he created. He created a life where all his children were there in the middle of the night as he took his last breath. They were all holding him and praying over him. All 5 of his children and their spouses and my mother-in-law. And that was a life well lived, and that was such a message.
What was the learning that you garnered from that supported you in facing every day for a long time whether your husband was going to live or die?
One of my jobs that I made up in my own head when my father-in-law was dying, I was trying to save his life through all these alternative treatments, and it didn't work. But in that process, even though it didn't save his life, he was too far gone. In that process, I learned a lot about taking health into your own hands. I learned because I was spending all day, every day studying how to get nutrition into the body, how to flood your body with nutrition. So I think it was a lot of those practical things that I learned. And I learned a lot about love because I wasn't taught that as a child. I was not taught love because I was not loved as a child. And really, my husband, Drew, is the only person that I know in ever that's truly, truly, truly loved me. And he learned that from his father. So I learned that. I learned sacrifice. I learned, I actually cried when my father, so I'm not a crier. I hold in the tears. I always have my whole life. But when my father-in-law was dying, I cried a lot. I remember a moment when I walked into my mother-in-law's bedroom and my father-in-law, we called him Poppy. Poppy was sitting in bed. He could never get out of bed anymore because he was so sick. And I saw this side of my mother-in-law. She's a wonderful lady, but German, little, not real. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Huggy, lovey.
Affectionate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the word. Affectionate. She's not real affectionate. But I happened to be in the bedroom doing something, and I watched her walk in and look at my father-in-law, look at Poppy, and say, "Honey, how are you today?" And she brought him something to drink, and it was just something. I started crying. I started bawling because I knew we only had like days left with him. And I had to run out of the room because I didn't want him to see me crying. But I saw this affection and this love, and she never let herself lose it in front of him. And I think I learned that from her because when Drew was at the end of his life, or we thought he was, I never let him see me cry. I never let him see me anything other than smile and be joyful.
I have a lot of questions about that. I have a lot of questions about that. I give you a deep bow. I don't know that that is possible for a lot of people. And this really, I mean, you were a warrior in every definition of the word. I want to ask you, like, how did you do it? How did you keep your emotions in check to that degree? How did you show up smiling again and again when the outpicturing was potentially really devastatingly bleak?
If you would have asked me this a couple years ago or even a year ago, I wouldn't know the exact answer, but I know it now because I've been putting the pieces to the puzzle together. And I have to preface this by saying I'm not a religious person. I was never a follower of Jesus. I was raised Catholic, so that's what happens when you're raised Catholic. You're just like, forget religion. But when my mother used to say, there are no atheists in foxholes. And boy, is there a lot of truth to that, because when I saw that my husband was probably not going to make it, I started calling in all the help I could get. And Jesus, I prayed to Jesus every day. And every day I requested his presence in Drew's hospital room. And I visualized him kneeling down at Drew's bed and holding Drew's hand. And I started every morning with this. And I know Jesus was in there because Drew was saved, not just once, not just twice, but I could name 30 different times he was saved from certain death. One time his ventilator popped out in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many things that happen. And Drew, like me, not religious, never really talked to Jesus or anything. But when Drew came out of the coma and he was able to write, because he couldn't talk for months, when he was able to write, one of the first things he wrote was about his near-death experience. And then he wrote, Jesus was in the room with me. And I said, oh my God, I sent him in there. I told him to be in there. Like I knew. I mean, there were just so many things that can't be explained, but I was guided and I was praying for things and I was aware of when the prayers were being answered. I was tapping into my intuition on such a level that I made some really crazy, impossible things happen. I was moving mountains, and I was being given information from people I didn't know that helped save Drew's life. I mean, you got to read the book. There's so much. I'll tell you the first big thing that happened. It was a few days after he was put on the ventilator. The nurse came out after the ventilation procedure. I'm outside, standing in the bushes, staring in the window after saying goodbye to my husband on the phone. And the nurse came out and brought all his things, including his wedding ring. And I was devastated. Why? Why would she give me his wedding ring? And she whispered to my sister-in-law, start making plans, essentially saying, start making plans for his funeral. So a few days later, I'm driving down the road and I'm going through this mental checklist of the funeral, where it's going to be, who's going to speak at it, just all the to-do list in my mind of what to do when he dies. And I got a sudden jolt.
Yeah, I feel
a
the
voice in my head that said, if you want him to live, you have to plan for him to come home. I got the message. And I took the message a little further. I'm not just going to plan for him to come home. I'm going to get everybody else on board with this plan for him to come home. Everybody, all his friends on social media, all his fans, family, friends. And I saw that as my job. And I never again, not once, entertained the thought of a funeral.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Maria, I got to peek at your Gene Keys this morning and see that your purpose is the gift of guidance. And you have this incredible intuition, this incredible knowingness that has always moved through you for as long as I've known you. How is your relationship to that inner knowing different today as a result of this experience and as a result of like hearing that voice, hearing that message, and then doing an about face so dramatically and literally and refusing to believe in anything else? How is that relationship to your inner knowing different than it was before this happened?
It's 1,000% stronger because I started being very aware of it. I started listening and I started to trust myself. And it's not just trusting myself, it's trusting my awareness of the messages coming to me through other people. That God, universe, Jesus, I don't care what you call it, my higher self, calling in an awareness of what's coming to me as messages. I am noticing synchronicities. I'm noticing patterns that you'll see in a day, a month, a year, a decade. I'm seeing patterns going back millennia. I'm now seeing things I never saw before, and I'm trusting it. I know them to be true, where in the past, I would think it's my imagination or I'm just making things up. I know now when I see something in my mind, when I see how things are put together, how things work, how there's a spiritual war going on, I can see it now. And I can see my role in it, not just in this life, but I can see it in past lives. I don't have any spiritual training other than I took Reiki, but I don't know. Um, I just, I trust in the power of myself and my fellow humans. We have so much power. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons that I got from moving this mountain, saving Drew's life from a certain death. We have so much power within ourselves, and then we have power with our collective tribe and the collective in general. And when we become aware of this power, we can direct it. We can direct it on an individual level, and we can direct it on a group level. And I'm playing with it more and more. And I say playing because it's fun when you start to see what you can do. It's fun.
I hope everybody tuning in can hear what Maria is sharing right now and the power of what Maria Brophy is sharing as a result of her extraordinary journey. If you want to read every gripping page of the story, you can get a copy of COVID, A Love Story. That's one of Drew's paintings on the cover of the book. Maria, how I know that this is a sacred contract is another sort of delineation that Carolyn Mace talks about, is that sacred contracts are about the relationship that we have to our own spiritual power and to our personal power. So you're literally addressing this right now, and you're speaking to this. Share a little bit more about how you realized that power inside of yourself as all of this chaos and these uncontrollable events were happening, where you had to surrender to some degree at the same time that you were fighting systems and bureaucracy and naysayers, like the naysayers after the naysayers after the naysayers. How did your personal and spiritual power come to be as strong as it is today?
With practice, having that challenge of, there was a time during this whole thing where the doctors were pushing for a lung transplant for Drew. Once they realized they wanted me to let them pull the plug on life support. And I had already made this decision. I wasn't going to give up on him until after he took his last breath. And so I said no to pulling the plug. But I knew he could go at any moment. But I was not giving up. And I got to this paradox in my mind where I said, okay, God, I'm not letting this man go. I'm not letting him die. I'm going to fight to the death to save his life. But God, if you take him, I will surrender. I will respect that, and I will make the rest of my life as good as I possibly can. And that is such a paradox. So it came time for a lung transplant was his only chance, and I bought into it for a minute. We were fighting to get him accepted by a hospital who does lung transplants. He finally got accepted. And then when I got the word that he got accepted, I got really sick to my stomach, and I was like, this isn't right. Something's wrong. A lung transplant does not feel right. And I just knew that it was going to kill him. and he was already on the edge of death. And so I went in and I talked to his doctor and I said, I'm having second thoughts about this. And his doctor, and he's a star pulmonologist, like one of the best. And he got very upset with me because he knew that I could put a stop to it. And he got so upset, he started yelling at me and he said, he will die if we don't transfer him out of here for that lung transplant. He is going to die. And he kept yelling at me. And then he stormed out of there because he did not want me to change my mind on it. I left the hospital. I broke down and cried. And I was saying, God, this is too big. This decision's up to me. I'm not a doctor. The whole hospital's telling me he needs a lung transplant. My stomach is telling me it will kill him. God, I can't do this. And I broke down and I said, God, I'm giving this to you. You are going to decide. And as soon as I said that, I felt this weight lift off my shoulders and I just let it go. 2 hours later, I get word from the hospital. We've got bad news. USC decided, after all, not to accept your husband for the lung transplant.
What a miracle.
And guess what? He didn't need one. It would have killed him.
It would have. Oh.
So that's like trusting your gut, right? Trusting your gut, even though all these people that are so much smarter than you, collectively, his entire team of doctors had 100 more years of medical training than I did.
Yeah. I know when we walk a path like this, when we are in a sacred contract, we have to confront parts of ourself that we ordinarily keep hidden. And I know you talk a little bit in the book about old patterns of people pleasing. So I wanted to bring that forward. And, you know, as we look deeper today at your growth, your transformation, your evolution, tell us a little bit about some of these parts of yourself that maybe we would call them the shadow aspects that you had to have a face-off with, right? That you had to confront and love and move through in order for your gifts to be birthed through this events.
I've had to deal with, so my shadow self cannot stand to be criticized. I cannot stand to not be loved by every single human on the planet. I can't stand. It deeply hurts me, and I'm getting better with that. I did get criticism from some people, and some of them were people very close to me that I really care what they think. And the criticism went like this: trust these experts. Why are you questioning things? Also, don't think you're the reason that he's alive today. Like, really, and I never gave myself credit for saving his life until a year ago. I started saying, after a psychedelic journey, and the medicine showed me my wings, my goddess warrior wings, and told me it was time for me to put my big girl pants on and see who I really am. And stop playing like this little girl that doesn't know anything and is afraid to be criticized. And, I've had to face a few of my shadows. In the last few years, I lost a couple friendships over stupid things, and it hurt me deeply. And I realized I had to really look at myself, because when you have something happen one time, you can blame that person, right? But when you have it happen with 3 different people, you have to look at yourself and go, "Okay, I'm the common denominator here," right? And I realized my biggest flaw that I'm still, have not figured out, I'm just now working on it, is being able to accept that I can have a relationship with someone and they can still maybe not like something I say or do, and that I have to learn how to talk things out with people without getting triggered. That little girl of, that little Maria, that whose parents didn't love her, and if she saw, I noticed that if I'm talking to someone, this just happened the other day. I can't think of where I was. Where was I? At the gym or something. I was talking to some guy, I don't even know him, some man, and his expression on his face was, there was no expression. I automatically read it as disapproval of what I was saying and disapproval of me. And I mean, I was saying something friendly like, "Hey, nice weather we're having. It's like summer." I don't know. I was just saying something like that. But now I'm noticing, like, oh, when someone gives me a frown, I take it personally, like I did something wrong. And that's my shadow, right? And so I would respond not in a healthy way. And so I'm really working on that. And I think um all the growth that I've been experiencing these last 5 years is leading me to that. And I wasn't paying attention to that in the past, because I thought, I don't know, logically, I think that's not a shadow. Nobody likes to be criticized. Like, it's human to not want to be criticized, but it's deeper than that. It's a feeling of unworthiness. I know that's probably not, you probably didn't expect me to go there, did you? But
I honor you. I honor your level of awareness around this. And I think that it's so beautiful, your recognition of your own opportunities, right? To continue evolving yourself and moving through things, and really recognizing that if someone, has a different view to offer, that doesn't necessarily mean something personal about you. And you were given, I mean, I could probably go through and mark them in the book, the number of people that you were in contrast with over the course of this unfolding, right? Like, again and again and again. Yeah. Yeah. So I just really, again, I want to acknowledge you for turning up the inner inquiry. And, even before you and I jumped on our live call today, you were sharing with me that there's still healing to be done. There's sorting through so much of what unfolded and being able to make sense out of all of it.
and telling the
I,
truth, telling the
mm,
truth. So I realize that I don't always tell the truth. Not that I'm telling untruth, it's that I keep the truth to myself for
mm,
fear of criticism. And that's a message. It's funny, how I said earlier, uh, the universe sends you messages through other people. And Drew and I were recently on a cruise in Croatia. It's the best vacation we ever had. And we were on this private little yacht that we had a bunch of friends with us. And one was a friend that I really, Drew grew up with, but we haven't spent time with him in, 10, 15 years, right? Actually, yeah, about 15 years. So, but it was really interesting. On the last morning of the cruise, he said, "I got to tell you, I had this crazy dream last night." about you and Drew. And I said, really? What was it? And he said, I was told to give you this message. And I'm like, what? What message? He goes, tell the truth, tell the truth, tell the truth. And it just sent chills down my spine because I
I'm getting the
realized
chills
that
right now.
a lot of the story behind the memoir that I wrote, there's a lot of things in there that, and there's a lot of things that didn't make it in the book, that can help people if I tell the truth about it without fear of being criticized.
Yes. Yeah. I want to talk about suffering on that note, which is also an uncomfortable truth, But you wrote something on pages 428 and 429 that I want to excerpt here a little bit, and I want to invite you to share about it. You were sitting under a plum tree in your backyard, and you were contemplating, maybe because Drew was always the strong one, he was the last person that you would expect to see fighting for his life. His illness forced people to look at their own vulnerability, and seeing him fight so hard to live inspired people. His miracle gave everybody hope. And then you wrote, I began to understand there was a divine purpose to the suffering that Drew and I were experiencing. It wasn't just about us, it was about transformation, his, mine, and everyone's. And then you go on to write, our suffering was the only way to deliver the gift of more profound wisdom, an understanding of just how powerful our intentions truly are. Every prayer, every hopeful thought sent energy to the collective web, and that is what helped create this miracle. We avoid suffering at every turn. We medicate ourselves, we numb ourselves with everything from television to pharmaceuticals to drugs and alcohol. We go out of our way to avoid suffering at all costs. And you walked through something where the suffering was unavoidable. The suffering that your husband went through was unavoidable. Share with us, Maria, the beauty and the benefits of that suffering.
Well, once you go through something difficult like that, you realize how strong you are. You are given an experience where you test your mettle, you test your ability to get through things. I think for me, I learned to be more compassionate for other people. I had no idea people were going through things like this every day. There's some woman or man mourning or begging their spouse to make it through something tough in the hospitals. People with their children, sick children. So the suffering made me way more compassionate towards people. And not just people that I know are suffering, but people that I don't know. Because a lot of people that you just walk past in the grocery store are going through something, and we don't know what that is. I don't like suffering. I'm a Taurus. I really like my creature comforts. I like to feel good all the time. I think the way I dealt with that extreme mental anguish every day was well, for one thing, I had a lot of really good friends that lifted me up daily. And I made sure I laughed every day. So I would turn on Sex in the City at night because I love Sex in the City. It just makes me laugh. It's so stupid. And I just took it one day at a time. And I think that I lived each day. I lived in the moment every day. And I don't normally do that. My mind is always to the future or the past. I guess that's normal. But in the middle of a crisis, for me anyway, I'm in the moment. And I was in the moment for months. And I'll tell you one really beautiful thing that I don't even know if I can put it to words, put it into words. But when Drew came out of the coma and he couldn't talk, and I was in the hospital with him all day, every day, and I got really good at reading his eyes and his energy. And he was writing after a while. He was able to write. Because I had to communicate with him, I had to look at him. I had to pick up on his energy. I had to be deeply connected to him. It forced me to be in the moment, and it forced me to feel more, to feel the energy and to feel that connection. And it got to the point where I could read his mind almost. And I remember thinking, wow, that's kind of cool. I also saw that, and this is what's hard to put words to, when you're living life so raw, when you're like living in the rubble of war, you're feeling so much that your pain starts to feel beautiful. I know that sounds weird, and I'm not really saying it right, but I started seeing the beauty of the moments that I have, even though Drew couldn't move and he's hooked up to all these IVs and the future was uncertain. I was, I got into this space where I was feeling so deeply in a way that I never did before, that it was beautiful. And the only word that I can think of to describe it is like this rawness of life. It's like so raw. And I always think about that when I think of, gosh, what if something really crazy happened in the world? We had some major disaster. And I think life will be so raw. It'll like be an adventure. It's sort of like what you mentioned. I was listening to one of your videos earlier today where it's like a 9-minute video you have about the gene keys and you're explaining them. And one thing you said really got me. You said, our sole purpose is to have an experience that, and with the experience, our soul grows, something along those lines. And I was
Wisdom.
thinking about this, right?
Yeah, that wisdom can only come through experience. And, most of us are so trapped in our minds, and our minds want to like get all the info and collect all the data and have all the knowledge so that our ego can feel safe and right. But the soul is here for the experience. And it's here for the experience because the soul is interested in wisdom. And our soul is our true divine essence, which is comprised of love. And so this brings us back to really the beginning of where this all started, that this journey, which is a sacred contract between you and Drew, really was about love. And this rawness that you talk about, Maria, was almost like the alchemical fire that creates transmutation or transformation. Like, that's how we go through it, in the fire, in the rawness, in the suffering. And it's in that we are distilled, alchemized into the truth of who we are. Beautiful, divine, wisdom-filled beings of light and love. And I know Drew talks about this from his near-death experience, and you have so much of it threaded throughout your book, which is so incredible and beautiful. And, you know, the last thing that we do on our show is called the Celebration of Love's Alchemy. And the whole idea of it is being able to bring our love to something that we wouldn't ordinarily bring our love to, because it's that love that transforms it. And it's our love that will transform the world. It was your love that transformed your husband's life and the community that supports you. Maria, I'm glad that you figured it out a year ago, because if you haven't read the book, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear.
And Donna, I want to tell your listeners here that you came up to me at some point when Drew was in the hospital and you told me, you're going to write a book about this. And I said, oh, no, I'm not. I don't know. I don't remember what I said.
Very clear to me. It was very clear to me.
And I also want to share this little fun fact, if I may, and I put this behind me so I could remember. I wanted my book to sound like I'm talking to a friend. And I know I nailed it, because I had many people who read my book say, oh, yeah, it was like I was listening to a friend. Well, I needed a picture of a friend on the wall next to my typewriter. And who did I print a picture out of? Miss
Wow.
Donna Bond. I think I grabbed this off of your Facebook. And then I wrote a little word bubble that says, tell me the story. And I looked at this picture every day that I sat down to write. And I'd say, all right, Donna, here's today's story. So isn't that funny? You were with me, and I didn't tell you this until a year ago? Or I don't know. I told you very recently about this. You didn't even know you were hanging on my wall.
Maria, you are such an inspiration to so many people. And I want to thank you for taking the time to document this journey, because I know the process of writing a book, and I know the process of documenting how you documented the pure chaos and how you unfolded it in a very, in the now kind of a way, was a real gift. Your love between you and Drew is extraordinary. Happy Valentine's Day. I know when we set the date to have this conversation, I was so happy that it was coming up around the corner for Valentine's Day, and as a celebration to the love that you both share between you and the sacred contract that you share between you. If you could give our listeners one little last message of wisdom for anyone who is walking through their own fire right now, what do you want them to know?
Say to yourself every single day exactly how you want the outcome to be. And you say it over and over and over again. And hey, while you're at it, say it all day long to yourself. You have so much power, and a lot of that power is in the words that you say to yourself. It works. It's powerful.
It works, and it's powerful. I just want to acknowledge everyone. I can't believe how quickly this went by. We have all these comments in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, with all of your love that you've been giving Maria throughout this entire interview. And we're going to go ahead and close our space. If you want to get Maria's book, just go to mariabrophy.com and find your way to COVID, a love story. You don't want to miss this. I promise you, I couldn't put it down. It's really incredible. Leave her amazing reviews on Amazon and help share this really inspirational story that is unmatched. We're going to close our space. We just close our eyes for a moment and we send love and light and blessings around the world for anyone who might be moving themselves through the fire, through the suffering, through something that is so unbelievable that they don't think that they can take one more step. But we're here to remind you that you can. We're here to uplift you and remember the source of your power is your love inside of you. We are now closing all energetic lines of communication between any of us, closing all open portals, gateways, channels, agreements, and lines of communication between any of us and the spirit world. We are grateful and we say thank you. We are closing this show with love, in love, for love, by love, as love. Maria Brophy, you're amazing. Love you so much. Thank you
Love
for
you,
being
my
here.
friend.
Thank you for watching Spiritual Ambition today, everyone. Thank you.